Started the webinar, just letting you know. Well, come on. I've already started the webinar.
What?
I've already started the webinar just so people can start joining online.
Okay.
If you can, just let them know we'll be starting in a few minutes.
Okay. All right. I appreciate it. Oh, I don't know. Testing. All right. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. If you want to grab some food, but please do so really quickly. We're getting it started in a couple minutes here, as soon as everyone gets seated. And for those of you guys who are joining us through the webcast, welcome to you also. All right, everyone gets some food. Great. All right, we'll get started here. We're gonna not wing the safe harbor piece, and so I'll kind of read through that. But yeah, I think there's no camera, it's just audio only. Yeah. All right. First of all, hello everyone. My name is Wang Veng. I'm Amplitude's Chief Financial Officer. I'm excited that everyone could make it here. We're so we're just like, it's amazing to be able to come back and in person and feel the energy and meet some people that we've kind of only seen through Google Meet or Zoom or whatever it may be over the last year or so. And so it's just been been great to kind of meet everyone. Welcome to Amplitude Investor Briefing. During today's briefing, management will make forward-looking statements, including statements regarding our financial outlook for the second quarter and full year 2022, the expected performance of our product, our expected quarterly and long-term growth, accelerated investments, and our overall future prospects. These forward-looking statements are based on current information, assumptions, and expectations, and are subject to risk and uncertainty, some of which are beyond our control, that could cause actual results to differ materially from those described in these statements. Further information on the risks that could actually cause actual results to differ is included in our filings with the Securities and Exchange Commissions. You are cautioned not to place undue reliance on these forward-looking statements, and we assume no obligation to update these statements after today's call, except as required by law. All right. There's a second page. I want to make sure. Oh, yeah. Certain financial measures used on today's call are expressed on a non-GAAP basis. We use these non-GAAP financial measures internally to facilitate analysis of our financial and business trends and for internal planning and forecasting purposes. These non-GAAP financial measures have limitations and should not be used in isolation from or as a substitute for financial information prepared in accordance with GAAP. A reconciliation between these GAAP and non-GAAP financial measures is included in our earnings press release, which can be found on our investor relations website of investors.amplitude.com. As a reminder, the intent of today's event is to shine light on our innovation and amplify announcements, and less to discuss financial or guidance. We're pleased to have the opportunity for you to dig deeper with the team. All right. Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. I just want to quickly run through a quick agenda for folks so everyone knows what to expect. We're going to have Spencer spend a few minutes kind of highlighting the vision. And then Justin, who is our Chief Product Officer, will kind of go through some of the same announcement that we announced earlier at Amplify today. And then we're super excited that Tim could join us from Burger King as a customer. And Matt, who's our Chief Revenue Officer, will kind of walk us through that. And that hopefully leaves us with about 30 to 40 minutes still for Q&A, which is really what I'm sure everybody wants to kind of focus on, to kind of make sure you understand both what our product announcements are and what our customers and how they're using it. So with that, I'm going to turn it right over to Spencer.
Awesome. Thank you, Wong. Really appreciated for all the folks who came out here. Looking forward to the session. Didn't prepare as much as I did for this keynote, so we're going to try to just keep it more informal, hopefully make it useful for all of you. So I have just a few prepared things that I wanted to start off with. So first, I think I'm really proud that we got here today, not just in getting such great turnout. I think we have over 1,100 folks at Amplify, but this is also, today is also the largest set of product launches in Amplitude history. One of the things that is just super challenging for companies to be able to continue to keep up as they scale is just that level of product innovation. It tends to slow down over, you grow the team, but the innovation slows down, which is kind of one of these paradoxes. And so, we've been really hyper-focused at Amplitude about how do you just keep up that level of innovation on the product side, always be launching, always be putting the latest and greatest out there. It really comes back to when you're buying Amplitude, it's not like you're just buying what we are today. You're buying the rate of improvement of product, over time. And we've always been a market leader there, and, want to make sure that we continue to keep that up as we scale. So a bunch of phenomenal announcements today. We obviously came out with the CDP, which is our third new product, which I'm really excited about, as well as announcing a really generous free plan on it, which is just phenomenal. We launched a bunch of new capabilities around experimentation, in a new partnership with Snowflake, a bunch on the marketing analytics front with campaigns, as well as data tables. So just a phenomenal set of launches that really going to be great for our customer base in terms of pushing the boundaries of digital optimization. So before we go into all that, I just want to take a step back for folks here who are new to Amplitude, just go a little bit over about our market and long-term growth strategy. Our vision is to help all companies out there build better products through data. Digital optimization software gives organizations real-time visibility into their product, app, and web data so that they can deeply understand their customers. And this is essential to closing. I talked a bunch about this in the keynote, but it's essential to closing what we think of as the product gap at Amplitude, which is the difference between what companies ship and what their customers actually want. Today, the biggest challenge is that the entire customer journey is a black box for most companies. And so you get just these really incredibly frustrating product experiences, as I'm sure folks here are familiar with. So what's the solution to this? Well, I talked about it on stage, data-driven products. The really amazing thing is with all these internet-connected experiences, as product leaders, people have access to the understanding of the end-to-end customer journey for the first time. And that allows you to understand exactly what your customers want and then build products that deliver it, that anticipate and deliver every single time. And this to us is really the key in closing the product gap and making sure you're building what people want, your customers want. And what we've seen is that the need for this has never been higher. Companies are really just starting their journey along this. And we think it's the next big transformation in the product development. We've seen this at lots of both tech companies, and one of the really exciting things, we're starting to see this in non-tech companies too. So you obviously heard from companies like Qualtrics and Data Robot and Square. We also see non-tech folks like the NBA and Hard Rock really start embracing this. The level of sophistication that we've seen their teams display is actually pretty impressive. It's like similar to what we have seen tech companies do in the last decade. So two other megatrends that I wanted to call out that are driving our growth. First is obviously digital transformation. So a lot of megatrend of the last 2 decades. Companies have been spending so much into that to make sure that they're set up for this new digital first world. Now what they're looking to do is optimize and get a return on that investment. And that's where our category and what we do come in with digital optimization. The second mega trend is product-led growth. So Pat Grady from Sequoia talked about a bunch of this on stage with me, where the very best businesses are thinking of their product as a revenue center in the distribution channel. And they're shifting investments away from sales and marketing to investments in product, which is what customers are ultimately going to judging all these companies on and using as the decision criteria to where they're spending dollars. And that is reflected in how we're seeing investments across the organization happening. We're seeing the product teams and product development teams gain more spending power and more influence and more authority within organizations. Last thing I wanted to call out is, obviously it's been a tough time in the markets, tough time to be a high growth company in the tech industry. Every company is really thinking about how to do more with less, and they really got to show investments, ROI on their investments for every dollar they spend. And this is where we really become critical to that. There's a whole bunch of leverage that you get out of Amplitude. So, one is being able to, first and most importantly, is as a revenue driver, being able to connect what you're doing in product directly to the business outcomes. Secondly, there's a whole bunch on the cost side, from getting rid of, CDP tax and duplicative spend to replacing large do-it-yourself teams. I mean, I cannot tell you how many technology companies that I talk to where they have a just enormous expense on data engineering and data science, and it's a huge challenge because it used to be they couldn't keep up with the hiring of these teams, but now it's like the expense is a huge issue as well. Maximizing their data infrastructure investments with things like Snowflake, and then again, most importantly, how can you drive efficient, sustainable growth, whether that's through customer retention, free to paid loyalty programs, maximizing your LTV. So with that, I really appreciate everyone who is joining us here today for Amplify. Hopefully you can understand, get a better understanding of what we do here at Amplitude and how we help all companies out there drive data-driven products. Definitely encourage everyone here to attend additional sessions today. You're going to hear from lots more customers. I'm always a really big believer in that. A lot of companies create products kind of in the abstract. They think they know what customers want, but always the number one driver for us of our strategy and what we do is what we hear directly from customers. And so hopefully you get a chance, make some time to go do that throughout today and tomorrow. So with that, I'm going to hand the mic over to our product engineering teams to give you a little more insight into the specific product announcements that we have today. Oh, you already have a mic.
I think we got a mic. People here? Yeah. Thank you, Spencer. So Justin Bauer, Chief Product Officer at Amplitude. Wasn't even on. Oh,
this wasn't even on.
Oh, thank you all for joining us today. I think a really exciting day for us. It's incredible to see all the work that our product development teams have been doing and be able to see the customer impact stories. We're really, really excited about these announcements. I think it really helps us get one step closer to accomplishing our vision, which is empowering teams to be able to turn data into insights and insights into action. We really do believe that this is the secret power of data-driven product teams. And the faster they go through that iteration cycle, the better experience they build for their customers because they're learning more about what their customers want, improving that experience. And we had a number of announcements today to enable that to happen. The first one obviously is data. That was a pretty big announcement. Obviously, the Amplitude CDP is a pretty big one. I think we're really leaning into solving challenges that we've heard from a number of our customers over the years and frustrations that they have had with the data products that they're using. So one, high quality data, critically important, right? You don't get analytics, you don't get action, recommendations, experimentation if you don't trust the quality of the data. And so we're really leaning in, building out what we believe to be the world's best data governance product. We bought a company called Iteratively last year. We've integrated that into our existing governance suite. And we already have 90% of our customers using that within Amplitude today. But they've been asking us to be able to go from just managing data in Amplitude to managing all the data within their ecosystem. So we're excited about being able to bring that governance capability to the broader growth stack. Secondly, at the end of the day, why do you buy a CDP? It's not to pipe data around, it's to take action on it. And the best way to take action on data is actually to first start with insights, right? Because that's actually how you actually figure out what is the right campaigns that you should be running or the right product experiences to ultimately be targeting. And so the fact that you can go from analytics to then directly take action on the data, not having to go to a separate tool to do that, but one built for you as a product manager or a marketer, means that you're going to actually run more of those types of experiments. You're going to run more campaigns, and then you're going to use Amplitude to figure out whether they're working or not. So we're now really closing the loop there. And we're really excited about that. The Amplitude Recommend product is actually now part of the CDP for that reason, because now you can actually create target audiences and then personalize those campaigns. And then the last thing, Spencer also mentioned this as well, is at the end of the day, we don't want you paying twice for the data. And so that's why we're able to actually go out there and have a very aggressive free plan for our customers. And for customers that are beyond the event limits that we just described, if they're using that data in analytics and taking action on it, will be much more cost effective for them. And so we're really excited about being able to provide that service to our customers. Continue to speak about data. So obviously the Snowflake announcement was also a really, really big one for us. I'm sure people saw the announcement from last winter when we talked about the ability to ingest data from Snowflake into Amplitude. Today's announcement was about the ability to then take the data that you have in Amplitude and bring that into Snowflake through a new data sharing capability. I think it really speaks to what we see, which is obviously a huge trend around data being centralized around in Snowflake. But the challenge is that companies have with being able to democratize access to that data and take action on that. And so we want to be seen as the solution that helps customers do that. And so continuing to strengthen the relationship with them is really, really critically important. And we're really, really excited about that. So that's on data. Obviously, we also had a lot on the insights side as well. A number of things that we're doing to help customers standardize around the metrics that matter for them, be able to more easily analyze those metrics. And obviously a really, really big one, which was marketing analytics and campaign reporting. So that's for us a really exciting new set of capabilities. I mentioned up on stage, 15% of our power users were actually marketers today. We have a lot of marketers that are already using Amplitude. We hadn't really designed the experience well for them. And so with these new campaign reporting tools, it's much easier for them to be able to classify their channels, aggregate things like cost and spend and ad clicks to get a better sense of return on ad spend, and then be able to attribute that either using our custom or out of the box attribution models. So we're really, really excited about that. It's going to empower many more marketers to be able to connect their work to the things that matter, which is product outcomes. At the end of the day, we don't want marketers focusing on vanity metrics like clicks. We want them thinking about it actually driving out product outcomes, engagement, retention, loyal customers. And so by being able to bring those teams together so they can use the same tool to analyze the entire end-to-end funnel, it's a really, really important thing for us and part of the new digital analytics product. So that's it on the insight side. I'm going to hand it over to Shadi to talk a little bit more about experimentation, which we're also really, really excited about.
Thank you, Justin. Hello, everybody. I'm Shadi Rostami, SVP of Engineering here at Amplitude. I'm very excited to be with you all today. I want to talk about our last announcement, the product announcement, experiment result. We believe that whether you want to decide what to build, what to axe, and what to double down, experimentation is a very powerful tool to drive that decision-making process. And since we launched experimentation last year, we have been thrilled by the level of impact that our customers have created. And actually, a Fortune 100 technology leader was able to use experimentation and realize that they can, by offering a free trial for a paid add-on, they can increase their conversion rate significantly over a 45-day period. Another customer of us realized that the new onboarding that they were introducing actually decreased their subscription rate, and they decided to kill that feature. So we believe experimentation is really helping that decision-making product. However, some of our customers, and our experimentation is very end-to-end. You can do everything in experimentation, from creating hypotheses to delivering features and to basically analyzing. Some of our customers that actually came to us and said they are not ready to rip out their existing feature delivery and feature flagging infrastructure that they have. And that's why we decided to announce and build this new offering that we announced today, so that they don't have to do that. Right now, they can keep their existing feature delivery infrastructure and just bring the data to Amplitude, bring all of the A/B data to Amplitude and start analyzing it immediately, and self-serve and at scale, which is very important with all aspects of our Amplitude. So we're following the same model. And I think one thing that it's very important that we are working with our customer, creating all of this capability. I'm very excited for all of this thing that we announced today, all of the functionality and feature that we announced, and help our customer build better experiences for their customer. Thank you. I'm going to pass it on to you for other mic.
You got it. All right, my name is, excuse me, my name is Matt Hines. I'm the CRO here at Amplitude. Obviously, lots of very exciting product news today. That's what today was all about. The other great part of it is you heard from a lot of customers. And so for me, one of the most exciting things about this event is, certainly from a CRO's perspective, is meeting in person for the first time with a lot of these customers. We've seen them for so long on Zoom. One of those being Tim here, who's going to join us, because I think one thing that I would say we pride ourselves on is spending a lot of time with our customers, getting feedback and incorporating that into the products. And that's what really the results were shown today. And so the reason we've asked Tim, who's from RBI in the UK, or from Burger King, is to kind of bring that full circle, so you can hear the story directly from a customer of ours of how they're using that data-driven strategy in building out their organization. So I appreciate you joining us. Actually, Shadi, I'm going to turn my seat.
That's okay.
So I don't, sorry, not to be rude. So at least I'm not doing that way. So why don't you first introduce yourself to the group here, and and tell us a little bit about what you're up to at Burger King in the UK.
Cool. Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me here today. And yeah, it's been a great 36 hours so far, albeit full of jet lag. And apologies if I look tired. I'm the digital director for BK UK. So that's the master franchisee for Burger King in the UK. We're actually a relatively young company for such a famous and long-standing brand. I actually sit within the marketing team. So to Justin's point around the 15%, I'm within that. Obviously, there are lots and lots of product and engineering people here today. But yeah, I'm a marketeer at heart, and ultimately, my job is to make it quick, simple, easy for customers to access Burger King their way. So be that through our app, website, whatever the digital platform they are using, whatever that choice may be, to make it easy for them to get what they want. And so, yeah, I'm a big Amplitude fan. Happy to talk through my experience with you.
So one of the things that sticks out to me, and I know we talked about this, I think last night, was when you think about Burger King, you don't necessarily think about data-driven, you don't think about digital strategy, growth. So talk to us a little bit about that evolution you went through, and why, like, how you guys have really been kind of a leader in driving through this digital strategy.
Yeah, I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, you know, we as I say, as a fairly new company, I think that we were starting from behind a little bit, because when I joined, we had digital products. We just had absolutely no idea what was happening within them, who the people who were using them were, or what they actually wanted. What we knew was that we had a successful discounting platform, and that was it. And that was kind of how things were looked at. We knew that people were using it to come into a restaurant to get a discount, and we had the facts and stats around what those discounts were, and that was pretty much it. And so it felt like there was a massive opportunity across many, many different areas. Firstly, to know more about who these customers were, to actually help them understand what they actually wanted. Was it just discount? Were there other things that they needed to be able to do with us? And secondly, to actually then take it to the next level and personalize those experiences. So really to create two different, to drive it in two ways. Firstly, to get a broad understanding of who our customers were, and then what we've been doing over the past year, 2 years, just trying to really understand, okay, not all of these people are the same, so where do we go next with this? And yeah, I think that, you know, it was really quite an easy sell into the business, because everyone was aware of the fact that we didn't know what anyone wanted, but they knew that there was good usage, but there was also such an easy story to tell in terms of the headroom that there was to take things further.
So based on what you just described, it'd be really interesting to understand from a business perspective, once you were able to get that data, you're able to kind of get those insights. What's a decision that you've made within the organization, within the business, that's because of maybe what you've learned through what you've seen in Amplitude? Yeah, sure.
So obviously we have what I would call a fairly simple platform for people to use. In the end, what we now know, obviously, is we have an audience who are looking for value for money, first and foremost. It's a really important segment for us in the UK, because Burger King is looked upon as an expensive brand. So first and foremost, it's satisfying that need. Then secondly, what we found was that whilst we could satisfy that need in a very broad sense, actually there were different people and different needs within that subset. And so one of the things that we discovered over a fairly long period of time was there was actually a huge desire from our customers for plant-based or vegan products. So what we found was that people were searching for us, much more associated with those terms. When they were coming onto our platform, they were looking for those things within our offering. And so we were able to create cohort of customers very simply within Amplitude, and then start to test the waters a little bit in terms of what we would give them. So did they want information, just news about what was coming up? Did they want something more than that? Was it actually a personalized offer? So we went from treating those customers, sending them exactly the same stuff we were sending everyone else. So here's a new Whopper product, to actually saying, okay, that's not what they want from us. You could look at the campaign statistics to know that, but actually then you wouldn't have necessarily known what the next thing for them was. So it's having the ability to kind of drive down into that detail was massive for us, and you know, really helped shape where we've gone with the way that we talk to those customers specifically, but also our understanding as a business as how we can talk to different groups.
I don't think I was part of that cohort.
Many people are not, but you'd be surprised at how big that is, certainly in the UK anyway.
Crazy. when you go back to the business, and this is something that I've talked to a lot of customers about this week, is what's the return? What's the return on investment that you see? How do you quantify that? Do you guys look at that as a business? Like what, talk to us a little bit about it.
Yeah. And I think that it's really interesting what I've heard over the past couple of days, because as a marketeer, I report into a CMO and CMO reports into the CEO. Obviously what he cares about is, well, what are we getting back here? Like, what's the return here? And so we are now in a position where in the past, we might have suggested as marketeers, as we do, like, oh, look, we can do this campaign to give back, give free whoppers out to everyone. You know, we'll create brand affinity. People are going to come back. And the answer to that would be, well, will they? And can you prove it? And the answer back then was no. Before we started using a platform which actually would be able to show that it could create long-term value. So where we've got to is where in the past that group of customers was purely seen as important, but just a discount-led group of people who, yes, they come in every now and then, whatever. That group of people and the way that the business talks about that group of people is now completely different, because we know from the platform that they are heavily engaged with us, that actually campaigns like that do create long-term brand affinity. And we can actually show that, and you know what, they're actually longer term worth more to us than someone just coming in off the street. And so it's amazing to me, like how differently the people at the very top of the business talk about what we do with these digital customers now compared to where we were. And that's really satisfying, to be honest.
That's great. I think I know the answer to this question. I'm going to throw it out there anyways. Lots of products were announced today, or features, different things that we're adding. What's the one that sticks out to you?
Yeah, I don't want to be boring, but campaign reporting is massive, absolutely huge for us, because, you know, again, we do use other platforms as well. Like we run lots of App Store ads, which filter results into Amplitude, but not exactly in necessarily the cleanest way that we think it could. So I think that hearing that there's going to be a broad release on campaign reporting, I really want to hear more. Justin's already said I can join the closed group, which I will be holding you to. So yeah, very, very excited about that. And really important for the rest of our team as well, because obviously I use the product a lot and a couple of people in my team do, but it feels to me like the platform is getting more accessible. It's already very user-friendly, I think, as somebody who's been using it for a long time, but I think we're going to get to a point where you've got like much more people within marketing able to actually dive in and use it, which is very exciting and ultimately will lead to better results.
Well, I appreciate you sharing the story. For those of you here in the room, we'll open it up for a Q&A at this point in time. We'll have a couple of mics being passed around. So if you have questions for Wong, Spencer, Justin, Shadi, myself, or Tim, please don't hesitate to raise your hand and we'll get you a mic.
Hey, thanks for doing this. This is great. Good to see everybody. And thanks for coming and talk to us about Burger King UK. So as you said, you're part of the 15%. That feels like it's going to become a quote somewhere. I'm not sure what it means, but that was a good thing. I'm sure it is. But again, and as you said, you're a marketeer. There are marketing analytics tools, a broader pre-existing set of tool sets and availabilities for you. So as a marketeer, what brought you to Amplitude, which is focused more on the product management organization?
Yeah, I mean, I'd used other products before, you're right. Obviously, Google Analytics being one of the most obvious examples to get back to you. What I would say is that those products did not give the same actionable outcomes that as a marketeer, I think that Amplitude does. So I gave the example of the ease with which we are able to communicate out to vegan, plant-based customers something different. The way that the integration works with Braze, which is obviously one of the partners who are here today, is absolutely seamless. And I'm sure there are other products which can do similar things. Personally, I'd never used one which I found so easy to use. And to my point a second ago around the broader marketing team, certainly not a platform that I would feel comfortable handing over to more junior people within the team to use as well. It's a very user-friendly experience. And again, interesting to hear that direction of travel towards enabling marketeers more and more is where this is going, because I already think it's there. But clearly, like, there's more that can be done to really enable a broader marketing team to be using the platform on a day-to-day basis. So I think that there's something there for everyone. Obviously, like, we have product engineering, marketing here. I don't know how many platforms could solve something for every single one of those teams in such an efficient and comprehensive way.
Thank you.
Hey, it's Tyler Radke from Citi. Thanks everyone for the time. This is great to see everyone in person. Maybe a question for Matt or Spencer. So obviously the keynote we heard from Sequoia just and heard about the letter they wrote to their portfolio companies just around kind of preparing for a downturn and managing costs, particularly on the sales side. But something that stood out was the focus on product-led growth. So I guess my question is, for companies where you have seen headlines around cost cutting, layoffs, the Uber, the Lyfts of the world, some of these technology companies, is that message resonating, and how are you seeing that dynamic kind of impact their budgets for product analytics and Amplitude?
So it's a topic that's come up in a lot of the customers that I've met with this week. I actually think that what we're seeing is people are leaning into it, because as you start to cut back within organizations, as organizations are looking for opportunities, they tend to look to technology to solve some of their problems. And so I think Amplitude is actually very well positioned in this type of environment to help drive some of that efficiency within the organization that they might not see today. So some of those organizations that you mentioned are actually customers I met with during this week, who are looking at how do we leverage more of Amplitude, and especially based on some of the announcements that we saw today, broadening it across teams and also across different products that they may have. So I actually think it opens up a pretty big opportunity for us.
Hi, I'm Fiona Hines from Morgan Stanley. Thanks so much for taking the question, and congrats on the successful event. My question is for Tim, and I'm curious, given your background being from a marketing organization, when you think about net new dollars that are being diverted towards Amplitude, how should we think about where those come from, the budget within your organization? Are these existing marketing dollars that you're diverting from other marketing efforts into product analytics, or is this actual budget growth that's directed at the product analytics effort?
Yeah, for us, I do think we're quite unique just because of how we're set up, and the fact that there was nothing in place when we joined. We didn't have kind of an in-house product team. We didn't have any engineers in-house. So all the decisions that we were made ultimately for these kind of things came through marketing. And so we invested, and we were not starting from scratch in the sense that RBI, who are the brand owners for Burger King here in the US, were an early-ish partner of Amplitude, which that'd be right. And so we leaned on their knowledge heavily to understand kind of what they had got out of the platform, how it fit into their broader tech stack. And ultimately we went into a technology partnership with them. So it made an awful lot of sense for us beyond the fact that we were super impressed with what we'd seen. I can personally see why it would be and continues to be for us a marketing spend, because that's primarily how we're using the platform. But I need to expand a bit on the fact that the way that I work with RBI is that they have a growth team, they have product team who I work incredibly close with, but ultimately we're responsible for paying for the platform, and that's why it sits with us. But I can definitely see why that would be the same elsewhere too. Thanks.
I mean, RBI has been a customer of ours for a really long time. I think they actually started working with us in the in the US with Burger King, where they're rebuilding their application. And actually kind of is a very similar story to what Tim shared, which is that it wasn't actually that good. There are a lot of bugs. They knew they were getting downloads because of brand affinity, but they weren't really understanding why customers were downloading it. How are they using it? They wanted to build more into that because they wanted to transition over to that being one of the main drivers of revenue for them. And now they've been able to go from just analyzing user behavior in the app. They've actually connected that to data within the stores. And so they can we've connected into the POS data. So now they can actually see full visibility from how digital is actually even impacting offline and in-store, and get a full view of the customer lifetime value and be able to really look at the ROI of those digital investments, which has been, I think, really, really exciting to see, and exciting to see it expand to more and more of the RBI portfolio.
Do you know if that was net new spend, or was that when Ellie came in, or was he replacing something else? I think it was
net new. Yeah. So they did not have, it was a similar story what Tim just shared, which is they had outsourced all of the development of the apps. They were bringing it in-house. They didn't have anything in the stack. And so it ended up being all net new spend for them within RBI.
Hey,
Arjun Bhatia, William Blair. This one maybe for Spencer or Justin, but on the CDP announcement, how do you see the Amplitude CDP interacting with some of the existing CDPs that are already out in the market? And then I think typically what we see from CDP vendors is that they end up moving up the stack and they go into the engagement layer. As you think about how the Amplitude CDP evolves over the next several years, is that part of the roadmap and part of the evolution that might play out?
Yeah, I can definitely take that one. So I think first, as I said out there, like we're big believers in BYOD, bring your own data. So we're always going to have an open ecosystem approach. So we're not going to like force our customers to use our CDP or anything like that. Obviously, we think there are a lot of advantages to doing that. But if a customer wants to use another CDP, they're more than welcome to do that. As I mentioned, we'll be ingesting data from Snowflake. So they're centralizing around a data warehouse. Like we're going to embrace all those different trends. But I do think there are a lot of reasons why it makes sense to use an Amplitude CDP versus a third-party CDP. I mentioned a few of those. One is data quality. We've actually see that most of the time you actually find the errors in your data in your analytics, because that's actually where you're using the data. And so we're able to uncover that, and then we can fix that at the source. Cost is a big one. It ends up that we share a lot of the same infrastructure as a CDP company because we have to unify the data. It's how we get really quick queries. And so if you're paying a CDP and then you're paying us, you're duplicating a lot of costs. Whereas if you're just using us as a CDP, we can actually pass that savings on to the customer and have a very healthy margin for that product as well. And then the last one actually is what you talked about, which is how CDPs are moving up the stack. That's really moving more into what we think is that insight and activation layer. It makes way more sense for that to be in the tool where you're doing analysis. And so what I don't think makes a ton of sense is that you're a marketer, you're like coming up with some idea for a campaign. You then have to go into a tool that's built for a data team to then go and do that. Or what you actually end up doing, which is you then call up a data engineer to go build that audience because they know how that CDP works. Instead, just do that in the tool that you're already using to uncover insights and actually come up with new ideas for audiences and campaigns you should be running, not just the ones that you happen to come up with on your own. You can actually analyze the data, see what's working and not. And I think that's a lot of what Tim's been able to do within the UK is doing that. And so it's just the fact that you can just do that all within one tool, I think makes it a much more seamless workflow.
Thanks.
Maybe just piggybacking off of that, do you guys feel like with the CDP announcement today, is that more right now something that you can incrementally offer to existing customers and kind of improve the value add that you kind of currently have? Or do you think that near term, this could be another way to kind of be like a tip of the spear into customers and then help bring along product analytics as like the main commercial product that you're kind of selling to them, but then lead with the CDP?
I think it's both. I think certainly when we're out there in the market, there's a lot of discussions that we have where people are struggling with, hey, do we start with analytics? Do we start with CDP? This certainly helps us in those conversations where certainly being agnostic, we can go in and certainly sell the analytics at the same time or sell the CDP with the analytics and certainly use a lower price point than what they would do if they tried to combine two different products. So I think that's really what our opportunity is that we now have this flexibility when we go out into the market. Certainly the other value is that being the #1 product analytics company out there, this gives us the opportunity through CDP to potentially get into some of those analytics discussions or even push people who might be using product analytics today, push other vendors out to have more of a consolidated platform. So there's a lot of different sales kind of motions and plays that we can run with these new products and new features that were announced today.
Hey, thanks for taking the time today. This is Ashish Bhandari from Ashlar Capital. Great to see everyone in person. So actually, I want to say almost a month ago, we attended Atlassian's user conference, and I was able to talk to some of their executives who actually talked about using a few different solutions to drive their holistic product-led growth strategy, but Amplitude obviously being one of the core pieces of that. I guess, could you just frame for us maybe how often you sit side by side with other vendors and kind of what that stack looks like for, call it a typical Fortune 500? And then I had a quick follow-up.
Sure. Yeah. So we definitely obviously are known as a company that's helping drive product-led growth. And so that insights is really critical. But we also recognize we're part of an open ecosystem, right? And so there are a lot of other tools. That's a really, really important part of our vision. I think that's actually something that's different than a number of the other kind of analytics providers in enterprise companies, where they're much more closed ecosystem. We're always going to be open ecosystem. I think that puts a higher burden on us to build great products because we're not just trying to push it through a channel. We have to make sure that the combined products actually solve a problem that couldn't be solved by just piecing it together a bunch of different independent products. But yeah, so in terms of those tools, we've actually mentioned a couple of them. So Braze is a key partner of ours on the messaging layer, the ability to create audiences, those cohorts in Amplitude, and then pass that into different messaging tools, I think is a very powerful one. And then the other side of that is being able to then measure that. I think a lot of times most companies and enterprise customers are using more than one messaging platform. And so you can maybe measure the impact of those individual platforms and those tools. But if you actually want to see all of the different campaigns, all of the messaging, all of the emails that you're running in one place to get that single view of what your customer is experiencing, you do that within Amplitude. And so that's one example of a major partnership that we have and part of the broader stack that we're operating in.
Hey, this is Shrenik Kothari from Baird. One question for Shadi, I think. So on the experiment results announcement today, you guys mentioned the customers already have like the feature flag infrastructure and the bottleneck to scalability really comes in producing results. You also mentioned the customers are not ready to kind of rip and replace yet. But the example that you shared about the leading file storage company reducing the test cycle time from like 6x to 1 day, which is super impressive. So just wanted to get your thoughts on how you see this opportunity, both in terms of like new lands within existing analytics use case, as well as kind of potential customers which are already using the original experiment, given the amazing efficiencies that you're seeing there. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a great question. As I mentioned, for example, the example of a leading file storage company that were able to cut the result. One of the values that we are adding to the experiment is the nature of self-serve. So the person, the product person who's running an experiment, they can go there and analyze the results. It used to be that I have to involve the data scientists and they go and run that, and it takes a long time for me to get it, and so on and so forth. It takes a long time. That cycle takes a very long time to go. So that is why we really feel like that self-serveness, and also being at scale, you can do it much faster, with a lot of that. So that's why it helped that file storage company to really improve that. And why we are seeing that trend that customers are not maybe ready to rip their existing infrastructure, because there's been a lot of engineering work to build that feature flagging. So and they're happy with that. For feature flagging, they can do the feature flagging, but what they're really lacking is running real value experimentation on top of that. So if you're like, if you're happy with your feature flagging, let's keep that in place. You really want to make sure that you get the data, you analyze it fast, so you can the flywheel that Justin has talked about, the insight to action, make it much faster and get that. That's basically we're seeing the value happening. And I'm seeing not only that customer, actually, we are just announcing that there's a lot of customers who are showing a lot of interest in taking experiment results.
Hi guys, again, thanks for letting me back in. So Spencer, I came in a little late, so maybe you'd address this to begin with, but very big picture question. I mean, when we came to the story, it was important to say, here's what's been done again so far in marketing analytics, was somewhat similar to the question I asked Tim, and you were differentiated because what you were doing in product analytics was separate in various ways. Obviously, you're expanding across those marketing use cases. Tell me the long-term vision of how these two product categories go together longer term, and how you play and how you differentiate there.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is that the marketing and product functions at a lot of companies are converging. I mean, we're already seeing that in a big way in tech. Even in the example, Tim, they're responsible for the product end to end, even though they're the marketing team. And so whether it rolls up to marketing or rolls up to, the product organization or rolls up somewhere else, if you think about it from a customer point of view, they don't care. It's about, what's the end-to-end journey and experience with the company that I'm working with. And so, I think we think about, okay, we obviously got to start in product management, but our long-term thing is, how do we do the best job that we can helping an entire organization understand that end-to-end journey? And it doesn't really matter whether it's a product person asking that question, an engineer asking that question, a marketer asking that question, someone customer facing asking that question. It's just about how do we help someone who's non-technical really get access to that kind of, I think one term that's been thrown around a lot is customer 360. A lot of companies claim they do a great job of customer 360, but when it comes to actually understanding, how these sequential flows tie together, how, if you're giving a promotion to your vegan customers, do they actually come back and retain and spend more with you long-term? And, what do different offers with them help drive that? And so that kind of, we architected for that from day one in terms of really helping you understand that customer journey end to end. And so in our opinion, I think over the long term, when I say long term, I mean like 5-10 years, I think you'll see marketing and the product functions converge because, again, it's just about the customer journey. And so what we see in our most successful companies using us is it's both the product and marketing teams using us. And so we want to be able to serve from an analytics standpoint, their understanding of that journey, and then a bunch of different applications on top, whether that's experimentation, whether it's CDP, whether that's sending targeted groups recommendations. And so it's all about, for us, being a vertically integrated tool that can do that entire journey.
Hi guys, thanks for having us here today. Just to follow on that last question. I mean, you've talked about the partnership with Braze and how seamless that is, and sounds like a very powerful integration there. But as product and marketing does converge, do you feel like there's going to be more overlap there in terms of your product development, your product roadmap, and what they're doing? Do you have to push into sort of that more marketing, I guess, re-engagement, reactivation use case over time, or are you happy to rely on ecosystem partners and sort of keep to your lane?
Yeah, I think, we don't have any plans to go ahead and try to build a Braze. And as far as I know, they don't have plans to build an Amplitude there. I think you squint at a lot of these companies in the growth stack and they all have similar sounding value props. And you're just like, oh, these are all going to converge over the next decade. So I think, what's interesting for us is that the thing we've always been really great about is just helping you understand that customer journey. So helping non-technical people at a company understand how their customers are using their product and, they're, engaging with their marketing campaigns and, what's going on with the latest release. And so that's always been our sweet spot and our real strength and our competitive differentiator Amplitude. And so my expectation is we'll continue to emphasize that. I think the other thing that we're seeing is that, maybe in contrast to the previous generation of MarTech, I think there's a lot, the ecosystem is much bigger and much broader, as Justin mentioned. And so I think an important part of that for anyone who's going to be very successful is integrating with that really well and not just saying, hey, we're going to only show a preference for, you using the existing suite of tools, because, it's going to be hard for any one vendor, especially in the early days, which we are now, to offer the best thing across, analytics and experimentation and push and, whatever else. And so I think we're going to do things that come out with applications that naturally emphasize our core strength of understanding that user journey, which is why we launched the CDP today and why we did experiment last year. And then we're going to continue to partner with folks like Braze. I mean, there's a long list of companies here that sponsored Amplitude that you guys can go check out in the expo hall that we see as, great, important and great long-term partners for us. Same on the CDP side. I actually want to call that out. Like, I think, for us, yes, there are a bunch of advantages for using us, but we also want to continue to, have strong partnerships with folks in the CDP ecosystem because, there's a lot of customers who use those or roll their own. And so for us, it's just about reducing the barriers to getting insights on that user journey. And so I think a key part of the change in this generation of the ecosystem versus the last is that being open and interconnected with lots of partners and continuing to collaborate with them is going to be a really important part of it. And that includes Braze and everyone else.
Maybe one for Matt. I want to follow up, I think, on something that you had said earlier, right here in front of you. I could see your eyes going.
It's like voice of God here. This is
you had mentioned earlier that some of the tech companies that maybe they're in the headlines for layoffs and hiring freezes, they might be leaning more into product. How do you adjust your go-to-market motion in this environment? Do you allocate more resources to those tech companies that are forward thinking in product, but might be facing budgetary pressures elsewhere? Do you lean more into the traditional businesses, right, that maybe don't need to rely on VC funding to keep going? And then Huang, for you as well, like your go-to-market investments in this macro, like what are you doing incrementally to make sure that the ROI is there, and is there more scrutiny now, given given there's talk of this increasing likelihood of recession and budgetary pressures coming?
So as we look at the market and how we organize ourselves, it is something that we are thinking about, is shifting some of the go-to-market resources to focus more on what we refer to as digital native organizations, just because there's a level of expertise and there's probably some continuity if you're dealing with those companies versus maybe your more traditional brick and mortar organizations versus other types of verticals. And so we'll constantly be looking at and re-looking at our go-to-market motion to make sure we're servicing our customers in the best possible way. And so especially as we see changes in the macro environment, we will be agile enough. We've made changes in our go-to-market pretty quickly in the past since I've been here, and we'll continue to do that as we see the whole market evolve. So what you just mentioned is something that we've been talking about now for the last probably 30 days about whether we make adjustments to that go-to-market specifically around that digital native type of customer.
I think as far as the scrutiny on investment, I think we've always been doing that. I think if you talk to Matt or Jenna, they'll say, "Hey, look, we've been scrutinizing that for the last 2-3 years. We've always made sure we looked at kind of our, whether it's the Rule of 40 or whether it's the LTV to CAC and all those measurements, because I think we are here for the super long road for it. And so I think if you look at our results from 2020 or 2021, I think you'll see from whether it's operating margin loss or FCF and kind of where our growth is, we've kind of always been very conscious about it. I think now it's just it just happens to be that we're in with the rest of the party. I think where if you would have talked to Pat a year ago, he was here earlier, Pat would have probably been screaming at us like, "Why aren't you guys being more aggressive? You guys are just being too cautious." And now it's like, "No, you guys are doing it right. Yes, don't make sure you're evaluating and reviewing everything." So I think the landscape has changed so that we're actually a little bit more in line with what is call it in favor. But I think, at the same time, what we talked about earlier, what Pat's talking about, like product-led growth and investing in your product, that's what we've been talking about, even internally, and why we increase our level of spending on product development to make sure that we could make all the different announcements and service the customers more and provide more value to them, whether it's like the CDP or whether it's experiment results or campaign reporting for market. I mean, like all those things I think are playing exactly how we have it, and the landscape doesn't really change that right now.
Thank you.
Maybe a higher level question, but how do you guys think about shortening kind of the time to value, or kind of like quickening like the upfront implementation process to kind of help demonstrate value to your customers quicker? Because I think some of the feedback that we'll sometimes get when we ask ourselves, like, why isn't this category bigger, just given how much sense it makes, is that sometimes even if like the customers could appreciate the long-term value, maybe near term, they don't have the resources to go through the implementation process. And could that be something that kind of intensifies, I guess, near term, if everyone's trying to do more with kind of what they have and not kind of, grow their teams as much as they might have wanted to 6 months ago? So maybe just higher level, like curious kind of what are you guys thinking about or doing to maybe try to make that upfront implementation process as frictionless as possible for your potential customers?
I think a few different things. I think first on the product side, a huge part of the CDP launch is to drive that. So a lot of times we'll talk to customers and they'll say, "Hey, we want to spend 6 months evaluating, implementing a CDP before we even get to the analytics. So talk to us again in 6 months." And so a big part of the reason that we launched the CDP today was to shortcut that and say, "Hey, we can actually go with both from day one. You can get all the stuff set up in the CDP, you can federate it to all the different places you want to, and get the analytics all as part of the same thing." And so there's quite a bit there on the product side. Another big emphasis is giving away more for free so that they can self-serve and set up, which does shortcut the process quite a bit if someone's in the company is already familiar with Amplitude or has used it or is testing it out. And so that's why we announced with the CDP, we're going to give away 10 million events for free, which is way more than anyone other CDP on the market does today. And then there's a whole bunch that we're looking at on the self-serve side as well to figure out, okay, how can customers get up and running more quickly on their own? Because, obviously we're all about product-led growth here at Amplitude. And so driving a bunch more of that in terms of our adoption motion with customers. Matt, do you want to quickly talk about, some of the things that we're doing on the services and Lambert and the customer side as well?
Yeah, so as many of you probably noticed, we recently brought in our first Chief Customer Officer, Lambert Walsh, that we announced a few months ago. He's leading a lot of our efforts as we look into some of these areas on the customer success side of the house. I think one of the things, if you take a step back, that a lot of companies are challenged is how do you connect what you've sold during the process to what they're actually getting and how quickly they're getting that return. I think that's where your question comes from. And so what we are in the midst of kind of going back and just refortifying, I guess you could say, is that golden thread that exists so that we can drive and communicate with our customers exactly why did they buy Amplitude and what is the return on investment they're getting across those, whether it be use cases, whether it be issues or problems that they have within their organization. And the early returns on some of the work that we're doing there has been very positive to help, I think, in these types of situations when you have macro environments, when everyone is looking at the different types of spend across technology and people. A lot of times people will look at the technology and say, hey, what is this for? I think the effort that we've put into even over the last 60, 90 days to really help people understand the value of the investment of Amplitude has gone really far, and because you have individuals trying to explain this spend to executives. So I think that's a big part of our selling point is it's not just the technology, but is how do we as long-term partners help you communicate the near-term and the long-term value that you're deriving out of the solution.
Ashish here again. Thank you again for letting me squeeze in another question. Just while we're on, your new Chief Customer Officer, Lambert, I actually want to ask a question around, just expansion activity and how you think about that motion. I guess there are some of the questions here around macro and cost cutting and budgets. And so I thought I'd ask it directly, like what kind of playbooks is he putting in place to kind of drive your expansion pipeline, not just into the back half, but into next year, because there is some softening of consumer demand, call it, and there are concerns that, hey, maybe customers don't want to, or enterprises don't want to invest right now to drive growth because the consumer isn't spending as much. So just curious how he's thinking about that kind of playbook around that specifically to drive those bigger expansions.
Yeah, so I think we're a couple different things. I think first off, as we look at our customers and certainly all the product announcements that were made today and things that we've done over the last year, that's always going to be a natural place for us to go to drive those expansions. Certainly, as we look at our existing customer base and we look at the success that a lot of those great enterprise logos that you guys have seen out there, we've only penetrated part of some of those enterprises. And so how do we think about taking what we've invested or the success that those organizations have had? I mean, the RBI and Burger King is a great example. We didn't start with the whole thing at once. It's a traditional SaaS kind of play where you land and you expand over time. And so we're very fortunate where we have a great logo base and also based on our segmentation of corporate to enterprise, where there's a ton of opportunity across those organizations to move horizontally as well as continue to vertically expand them as well. And so our focus is really how do we identify and understand where the propensity is to buy within those organizations based on some of the actions and activities we see from them. And then how do we drive obviously the right story and the right engagement to allow them to hopefully move on to Amplitude or do something with Amplitude that they see with maybe a sister company or something like that.
Great. Thanks so much.
Hey, it's Tyler again. Maybe a question for Tim. You talked a little bit about Google Analytics, and I think there's been some rumored changes to kind of the Google Analytics product suite, which could be an opportunity for Amplitude here. But maybe just walk us through your perspective on those changes and anything that you're doing differently, and then if there's anything to add from the Amplitude perspective, just on kind of the comments that you mentioned on Google Analytics since the last earnings call.
Broadly speaking, I have loads to add on this just because we don't really, it's not something that we really use much. only I can talk about use of it in the past and just what we did not get, which we do get from Amplitude. So I appreciate that's not overly helpful, but yeah, it's not a direction which we're looking at the moment. But I'm sure you guys have more to add there in terms of the product development.
Maybe we'll take one last question if there's one last one, and then we'll wrap up. If there's any last questions. Nope. All right. Perfect. Well, first of all, hey, I want to thank Tim for taking the trip and taking the time to join us today upstage and sharing your perspective and thoughts. And really appreciate everyone making the trip out and doing it in person for our first investor briefing. We're really excited to continue our dialogue and conversation with you to learn more about Amplitude. And please stay and I'll hang out for a little bit longer. I know most of you guys actually have to go back to other sessions, but I'll be around if you guys have any other questions. All right. Thanks so much. And thanks to you guys for those who are on the webcast too. Thanks for joining.
Excellent.